Okay, folks, that technical problem was all me. I'm going to bring back everybody now by sharing the link. And there's D. Hi, sorry.
Who knows what happened?
Well, I know what happened. I must have inadvertently pushed the button to end the broadcast. I mean, that is clearly what happened.
Talking
Anyway,
with your hands, like in New
we're
York.
right in the middle. Hey, Steve, I'm glad you're back here too. We have Brandy back here also. We're just waiting for Greg to come back. But yeah, we were talking about the dangers of fascism right now. And uh, even though we haven't fully ended uh, the system, okay, of neoliberalism, that system is evolving towards fascism very quickly as we speak.
Yeah, it very much is.
Okay, so there was Greg is not back yet. Let me see. He said, "Tell Joe that's the issue. I'm waiting to get back in."
And that was what he had put before when he tried to get back in earlier.
Right. So,
So let me let me tag him.
okay, hopefully he'll be back now.
Oh, okay. But no, we were just saying that we're already in the beginning stages with the actions that are taken both by the Democrats and Republicans.
Right. So we can't have the evolution of neoliberalism to fascism. We have to block that. Now, Greg said earlier at the start of the earlier stream before the interruption, which I apologize for, he said that it's essential that we dump the corruption
Mm-hmm.
and we replace all the neoliberals we have in office right now, because that's the only way we're going to get rid, okay, of neoliberalism. That may be the only way we're going to stop the fascists also, because
Yeah.
I think the fascists are making use of the big money to get into office. They always seem to be very well supported when they run. And
And
go ahead, Greg.
I'd like to add to that the Democrats use soft fascism, which is identity politics, like what we saw in the 2020 Democratic primary when they put all the people of like from the LGBTQ community, they stick to identity politics, which is a form of soft fascism, if you really want to know the truth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we really do want to know the truth.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with the Hispanic and Latino population. Whereas in my area, most of the Hispanic and Latinos that I know voted third party because they knew Biden's history as well. So.
And look at how they use Pete Buttigieg.
Mm-hmm.
And he had absolutely no black supporters at all. His supporters, you can go into a Pete Buttigieg support group on Facebook, and it's overwhelmingly white.
And that's because when he was mayor of that town in Indiana, there was some things that went on where the only something involving the black police chief.
Yeah, he fired the black police chief
over. Yeah.
And there was a black woman that ran in the primary against him, And she was actually interviewed by Savage Joy of Real Progressives.
Mm.
Like I stepped up and volunteered for her campaign as a phone banker and all that. And there was some tomfoolery going on in South Bend, Indiana, where that one was rigged in his favor. And he got
Yeah.
a lot of money also from the DNC, even for that race.
Yeah, he was not well respected at all by the
Just
Black
like in Nina
community in
Thomas.
South Bend.
And I heard him say last year in a speech where he talked about infrastructure being racist. Well, look at what he did as a mayor in South Bend. He used infrastructure in a racist way. And whenever you call him out on it, the supporters, which are like, they try to accuse Trump supporters of being in a cult, yet they're the ones in a cult, just like the Joe Biden supporters, the K Hive. Like, I worked in that for 2 years.
Yeah, we call
I
him Blue
worked,
MAGA.
yeah, I do too. I tried to work with them for 2 years in the 2020 elections and the 2022 elections. And I just threw my hat up and I was like, the hell with the Democrats. I'm done with it. And then after a talk with Madeline Hoffman, she got me back into the Green Party where I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
I
the
mean,
only
it's
way
just a mess.
but the only way we're going to stomp out neoliberalism is we're going to have to dump the corruption. We're going to have candidates that are not focused on the identity politics of it all, that are more focused on the economics. All of our issues in our country are not culture based, they're not identity based. It is purely economic
And
policy issues.
we need somebody who'd be strong on foreign policy as well as the economic issues, because we need somebody that can't be pushed around.
Yeah, like Joe
And,
Biden and
and
Trump. Trump was pushed around.
Trump was pushed around. I don't think Biden has to be pushed
Yeah,
at all.
exactly.
I I don't think he I don't
Well,
think that
see who
man's
he
ever
is.
seen a war he didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he doesn't have to be pushed. But my point is with Marianne Williams is she can be easily pushed. And she's
You
What about
know,
Robert Kennedy?
Brandy, I really agree with you strongly about that. That is my misgiving about her.
she
That
can
I
be
think
easily
she could
pushed.
be too easily pushed.
Hmm. Yeah, like during the race, the 2020, she did at one point come out for Medicare for all. But then, like, once she found out that that would disable the uh, insurance industry because the insurance would no longer exist, then she backtracked.
And she backtracked, and now she's for Medicare for all again.
Yeah.
And she's
So,
loudly trumpeting that.
yeah. But to me, it feels like if you were that easily tricked into dropping it before, it's not going to be hard to trick you again, especially once you're elected. Um,
It seems to me that it would be easy for the deep state to trick her over foreign policy matters.
yes, it would be extremely, because just looking at the things that she has said herself on certain wars, yeah, exactly. She's very pushable, very influenceable. She'd be very influenceable by the DNC. It'd be like AOC over again, but worse, because this would be somebody in a presidential position.
What about Robert Kennedy? I don't. What do you think he
Yeah,
could be
Steve
easily pushed?
is asking about him. I don't know that much about him, honestly. And he also does not have a political career. We know his family. He's so that's one I'd have to watch, but because of contracts, I'm very lenient about voting for anybody that's running as a Democrat
Right.
because of their contracts.
Okay, the way I feel about it is we know that we're not going to be successful with any president
Yeah, to
if
me, the
if
president doesn't matter as much.
right. Okay, to me, the president can be easily countered and easily pushed by the Congress. If the Congress continues to be corrupt,
Hmm.
even a president who is well informed, who is earnest, and who is strong willed is not going to be able to do very much in the face of that kind of Congress. The president needs a Congress that she or he will be able to bring along.
Yeah,
And that's very important in our political system. It's because Franklin Roosevelt was able to bring people along that he was able to get a lot done.
Hmm.
Became one of the more successful presidents, okay, that we've ever had.
yeah.
Uh,
And plus, there was the outside pressure
the outside
of the
pressure of the
Socialist
Depression,
Party.
the outside pressure, yes, the socialist parties and the Communist Party, not
Hmm.
just the Socialist Party, and also, of course, the crisis of the Second World War and what he was able to do, okay, in the Second World War. We tend to ignore that, but the way he mobilized the country during the Second World War was unprecedented. And I don't know if too many people could have done that. He was really very very good at moving people to support it, and he would do things like we've never seen before. Like, for example, uh, when people violated the wage and price controls, the administration would prosecute them and put them in jail. It was no joke. It was considered very very important, and he used the full power of government to enforce that.
Hmm.
I don't think we've ever seen any other president do that, okay, except for him. Okay. But anyway, to get back to the main point, unless we can create the congressional environment that such a president would need, then we're not going to win out.
And then we've also got to remember that FDR with what he did with the Japanese internment camps.
Of
So
course, of
that
course,
was also,
that wasn't the only evil thing that he did too.
yeah,
He did a number of evil things.
yeah.
He certainly wasn't perfect, but he was a successful president who changed the country profoundly
Hmm.
with the kinds of profound changes that we must see now if we are to survive.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. It's like I don't, I do not feel that you can solely beat fascism just by voting. And that's my opinion. Not solely just by voting. You've got to be involved in
Mutual
the
aid,
outside
ballot
game, the
initiatives.
mutual aid, ballot initiatives, all of it. On the ground work to build up possibly other parties
Oh,
to get
yes.
them to where we can get, I realize we're more than likely not going to elect a third party president with the way our system is right now. But that gets by running a third party president and them getting over a certain number, it helps get them on the ballot in other states and
If
other
we're
places.
successful with the Dump the Corruption
Yeah.
campaign, we
If
will elect a third party president. But the
exactly.
nominees of both parties won't pass the litmus test.
Yeah, exactly. If
And
we
that's
can get the third party wins in Congress and in the House, that would be a big deal. But we need candidates to run.
Yes.
That's what's really good about Joe's shows.
Hmm.
Yes, he's talking about each candidate, each person, and their money history. And yes, it's one person after the other, but it's important for people to hear it.
Yeah, it is.
Consistently hear it. And you consistently see so many people.
Yep.
That's why it is so important. Those shows are important. And if we could somehow take those shows once you're all finished and put it into, a series would be great, because people have to hear the repetition
Hmm.
to really have it sink into their minds.
Yeah, they do have to have it sink into their minds that unless someone is running only with small dollar donations, they're not
Mhm.
going to represent their people. They're going to represent their large donors.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you're not going to have an incumbent. And with the way the power structure and what we've seen happen with the squad, our best bet is to work on building third party candidates that are not taking that money,
That's right.
that are working with small dollar donations.
Right. You were quite right, Brandy, about pointing out, and you were in agreement, Greg, that uh, we need to have the whole deal. We're
Mhm.
not going to do it only through voting. Why won't we do it only through voting? The fascists will just overturn the results.
Yeah, that's why I don't trust the Democratic primaries, because look at what we've seen
Yeah.
with
In
They'll,
them.
2004,
they'll go
2008,
into the
16, and 20.
they'll go into the streets and they'll try to overturn the results. And unless we have an infrastructure of organization of people who want to empower democracy, we won't be able to meet them in the streets.
No,
They'll have control of the streets. They'll have control of gangs. They'll use violence, and they'll end up taking over the government. Which,
and that's what RBN has basically been trying to teach people is you've got to build. They've been working on the ground game. While we're over here talking about the politicians, they're working on the ground game.
and working on the ground game is extremely important.
Hmm.
Okay, but everybody has a role.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know if we have the time or the resources to build up the ground game, but if we can get the idea in people's heads that in order to end neoliberalism, in order to end their suffering,
Yeah.
we have to get the money out of politics. If we can get that idea to them and get the idea of how to get the money out of politics through popular action, not through relying on Congress to pass some law. The
Yeah.
first thing that has to happen is it has to come from the bottom up, with popular. If we can get that idea into their heads, and other people can do the organization and get the movements behind us, then we can all together win.
And the thing is, and this is what I've been thinking about lately, and this has to go with ballot initiatives. Can you imagine if all of a sudden there was a national ballot initiative for Medicare for all? Then
Yeah.
that would, a ballot initiative alone
But we're
on
not.
simple things like Medicare for all, it would force Congress to act if they saw that there was widespread public support.
But to get national ballot access, you have to have a Congress that will allow national ballot referendums.
And they won't
And
do it.
and they're not going to do it.
And they won't do it. But
So we've got to replace the Congress.
We've got to also have people elected who are in support of a national ballot referendums.
yes,
Hmm.
So that way, if just imagine if we got a whole bunch of people elected to Congress and they come out and said we're going to host a ballot initiative for Medicare for all, then it would force every single Congress critter to act on it. It would force the president to act on it. And also, if the Supreme Court went after it and struck it down, then that would trigger riots. And I don't think the Supreme Court would want to interfere with a national ballot referendum that the public voted on.
Of course, if we had the support to get a national ballot initiative and referendum system actually put in, okay, at the national level, we would also have the support to change the Supreme Court by packing it.
Yeah. And instead of having it where the legislative branch has to approve them, let it be approved by the public. And if the Supreme Court justices do not meet public cry, I think they ought to go out in a national race, just like the president, and campaign just like they were a presidential candidate. And if their ideas do not meet the requirements of the American public, we simply will not vote for you. And that's the way I think it should be done, just like it's done in several states.
Okay, I think it would be a good idea to do it in that way also, but we have to have certain provisions. What do we have, okay, with politicians? We know they promise, they run on platforms, and then the first day they get into office, they do something else. So Supreme Court members would have to be subject to frequent elections also, because otherwise,
Yeah, they should not be lifetime appointments and appointed by Congress and the president. They should be appointed by us, the people.
right, and they shouldn't even be 10-year appointments. They should be more frequent, okay, than that.
Yeah.
And have it term
Time
limited.
changes too quick. Term limit.
There should be an expectation that when they campaign, they will not lie. And there should be controls such that if they do lie, they can quickly be impeached and gotten rid of. I mean, in the situation we have now, they go to the Congress and they barefaced lie. They've been doing it since Clarence Thomas in 1988. Or was it 1989 that he got in? I mean, he lied during his hearings. In fact, I think that Gorsuch lied. I think Kavanaugh lied. I think Amy Coney Barrett lied. The only one.
Hold up. I'm right now on Wikipedia. And Clarence Thomas had assumed office in 1991.
1991. Thank you.
Under George H.W. Bush. And I wasn't even a year old then.
Okay, thank you.
I was 11.
He lied.
Or 10. Yeah.
He lied, okay, in his confirmation hearings. It was very clear at the time, and Biden would not allow all the witnesses in to make clear that he lied.
Yeah. I remember I was like 10 years old. I remember the Anita Hill hearings.
I do too. I remember it very well because I was a lot older.
Yeah.
And it was, she was such a believable witness. And he was such, an unbelievable, when he denied it.
They wouldn't let her witnesses testify.
They wouldn't let her witnesses testify. That's right. And they just came down on her because that was sexism. Right there. That was sexism.
Yeah.
particular context.
And I think that's why it was so easy, that it's been so easy for so many of us that have believed Tara, is we remember that. We remember how he treated her.
We do. We do remember how he treated her.
And remind you, I was 10 years old and I remember it.
I don't remember any of it because I was too young.
You were too young and wet behind the ears at the time.
Yeah, I was.
But gosh. Yeah, I believe Tara too.
Yeah, I believe Tara too, I guess.
But we're not gonna.
After what he
But
did to Anita Hill, I believe Tara too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
but I honestly don't think we're gonna stomp out neoliberalism if we're gonna also run Joe Biden as well.
Oh, I agree. I don't want
Yeah.
Joe Biden at all. In fact, if they run Joe Biden, if we're successful with the corruptions, he's going to lose.
Hmm.
I mean, because he's going to be taking billions of dollars, okay, in the big money.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to vote him out. At the same time, we have to vote out whoever the Republicans nominate because they're going to be doing the same thing. We
Yeah.
have to throw out the
My
nominees of the two major parties in 2024.
my fear is the electoral college will make it a lot harder to get a third party president than it would be a third party Congress with the
That's
electoral
why we
college
need a third
system,
party
because
Congress in
each
order to
state
reform the system.
to reform it and have enough of them to where they can override a veto.
If
The way I think the third party system should work. And this is something I was even talking,
I don't
back
think
in
I don't know
2000.
when.
This is something I talked with Rodolfo Cortez about in 2018 and 2000 between 18 and 20. And the way I think the third parties getting elected electorally should work, I think if you're on the ballot in enough states to win a majority of the electorate, I think you should be able to get elected regardless. And I think if you're on the ballot in enough states to win the election fairly, and we also need to go to proportional representative voting, we do away with the electoral college and let it be a popular vote.
Okay, but those reforms can't happen until we're successful with dump the corruption and
Exactly.
until we change the Congress and especially get rid of the power structure.
And we're also going to have to not only reform the way the Congress is, we're going to also have to reform our state legislatures as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're in charge of your state legislative committees.
Yes.
And they're also in charge of your state voting rights as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're
The
gerrymandering
commissions
like all
and
get out.
yeah. But no, a big thing will be Congress. And then also, that's why what we're trying to do is add, like I'm working with the Green Party right now, trying to, in between everything else. I feel like I've got a million pots floating up in the air. But we need ballot access in every state. We need candidates from city council all the way up to federal for third parties. And we need third parties, even if you choose not. I mean, I'll admit it. I love Green Party. If Howie Hawkins is the nominee, I'm not voting for him.
Me neither.
I don't think
Me
he's going to
neither.
get it again. He's not
Yeah,
gonna get
I'm
it again.
hoping he's not. But I know that there's been some major splits over that, and with the way he's went with this whole Ukraine thing, no, there's no way. And I voted for him in 2020. and I would not vote for him in 2024. But we need candidates, because that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of us states have, is we don't have anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't have any Green Party candidates in my state.
Yes.
So we need those.
Yet we would get those candidates in the context of a dump the corruption
Yeah.
campaign that was growing and spreading and that was getting publicized.
Yeah.
When the third party candidates, if they were to see the movement, they were to see a powerful movement with people signing on each day, they would begin to believe that they have a chance to win, and so they would step forward, okay, and they would run.
Mm-hmm.
If they thought the two major parties were out because they were taking the toxic money, and they would all come in because they would all have a chance. So this year, 2023, we have to make this successful enough that by the beginning of 2024, they all realize they have a chance.
And and right now in 2023, now that you've mentioned that, there are local elections happening this November of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Like your mayoral elections, city council, all that other stuff. So that's going to be one major part that we do need to focus on, because if we can be successful on the local level, think about how successful we can be on the state level, on the national, on the federal level.
Yeah, because
that's why I always
the real change, we need federal.
Well, this is the way I see it, and this is me being specifically, I'm an elections analyst. I've analyzed elections and all this, worked closely in this. The foundation that we're going to have for the Dump the Corruption movement to be successful, we're going to have to work on our local levels in odd election years like this, because if we could knock the stilts out from under these people locally, imagine what we can do on the state level. Imagine what we can do on the federal level. We're going to have a strong foundation, and that is the local and state level first. Then we have the federal level. It should be also focused as well. Without focusing on the local and state levels first, we're not going to get successful with the federal level if we don't focus on what's in our own backyards first.
Oh, I agree with that. But to be successful, if we were successful with the Dump the Corruption campaign this year, and if we make clear that it's not just about the Congress, not just about the presidency, it's about every single election at every level.
Yeah.
And we make that clear to people this year, and we get them campaigning on a Dump the Corruption basis, then we can start having those people, the local people, be successful in 2023.
And then eventually they can step up, like in a few years, run for state legislature if they're successful. Then we're successful on the state legislature. We're successful on, because this is going to have to be realistic. We're going to have to be dumping the corruption in each and every election cycle.
Yeah,
regardless.
Yeah, we are.
I agree.
We're going to have to be realistic here. Like, if we're going to be successful with getting rid of neoliberalism, dumping the corruption is the only plausible outcome that we can dump the neoliberalism, which, as Noam Chomsky put out, that it is the breeding ground for fascism. It is the foundation and foothold of fascism. And that's the thing that we need to prevent. And we're going to have to stop being focused on the whole identity politics mantras that both parties use. We're going to have to focus on economic issues that impact the lives of every single man, woman, and child across this country.
Of course.
All of our issues as a country is not identity related to any identity. It is related to pure economic injustice. And that's even what Richard Wolff come out and said.
Yeah.
And he's been at the forefront of this for years. He said if we focused more on the economic policies, such as Medicare for all, student loan debt forgiveness, a living wage standard, along with a federal job guarantee, as Pavlina Charneva states, then we're winning the corruption, and we're getting rid of neoliberalism. We're getting rid of fascism if we focus solely on the economic injustices that our neighbors are faced with. We want this movement to be about unity, where nobody hates their neighbor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. Because we need to realize a lot of people that we disagree with on policy stuff, we disagree with them because they may not recognize the issue the way that we see it. So, like, a lot of Republicans are for Medicare for all, but they don't support the party, the Democratic Party. They won't vote for a Democrat. They possibly would have with Bernie. Some of them would have. Yeah. If Howie ran and got the primary, I'd go completely independent. I have no problem with that.
I've already gone
I'll vote for independence. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm trying to build it in my state, but I'd vote for an independent as well. So I care more about policy than I do about the letter next to the name. But I just think that with both Democrats and Republicans, they're so bought out. The whole system, the DNC and the RNC, are so bought out to where it's corrupted from the ground up. You can't build off of that. The only thing that I've considered doing, because my state is an open primary state, I can't vote for both primaries, but I can choose to vote for one, even registered as an independent. Considering the fact that I don't think that Biden will win, but I think Biden will be the nominee in 2024.
Let me ask you a question.
Considered.
Let me ask a question.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's say we have an RFK challenge at this point.
Yeah.
And he takes only, he has a great platform, and we think he looks good, and he would have the will to resist a deep state, and he uses only small dollar donations, fundraises only with small dollar donations, pretty much the way Bernie did. But here he is, he's running as a Democrat. Would we then vote for him in the primary? If he won, would we vote for him in the general, as long as he kept on running based on small donations alone?
I'm not sure that would even be possible because of the DNC party contracts. Like, they'd have to take the DNC PAC money. And
why would they have to take the DNC PAC money?
That's what I've heard, is if they're DNC, they have to take the DNC PAC money.
They do. It's true. I've actually seen evidence of it myself.
Yeah,
what if they refuse to take the DNC PAC money? In other words, what if they just say, keep your PAC money, I got a lot of small dollar donations, I don't need your PAC money?
See, I'm not sure if they'd even have the option, though.
The DNC would turn around and send their PAC money to the Republicans just because that's what their donors would tell them to do.
See, But I'm not sure that they'd even. I don't trust the DNC, is what I'm saying. Okay, so it's admitted
I don't trust the
in
DNC.
the court case that they get the super delegates. The DNC has admitted that they can pick, because they're a corporation,
They
they
can
can
pick
pick
whoever they
whoever
want.
they want.
Yes.
So, first of all, they don't have to go with our votes.
Yeah.
So, even if we voted for him, there's a chance that they would line up enough super delegates to keep him out.
Just
Okay.
like they did with Bernie.
Okay. So, okay, let's say that's the way we think about it, because it is the way we think about it, and I agree that's what would happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that uh, he wins the primary, and he makes it known that if they select or nominate anyone else other than him, that he's going to run as the Green Party candidate or whatever party would have him. Okay.
The other issue with that is the
What if
contract.
he stated, look, they broke the contract by rigging the election.
Yeah,
So if they break the contract first, why is he bound?
he shouldn't be, but we know how the system is.
Well,
That's
Yeah, just
kind
like
of
Bernie turned into a
like
total sheepdog.
that's why I
A
wish that
lawyer.
he
I know he's an
had.
environmental lawyer, but he's a lawyer, and I'm sure he'll figure something out.
Yeah,
we know how the system is,
we know how the courts are.
but consider the context.
Yeah.
Okay. The convention happens and they take it away from him in spite of the fact that he won the primaries. Okay. And then after the convention, he immediately makes a speech and he says, well, they rigged it. They broke the contract. Okay. I am running as a Green Party candidate because I'm no longer bound by the contract.
Well, and
Then he
then
gets
you've
a
also
lot
got
of popular support that would be coming to him. There would be all kinds of excitement, and he would be running on another party line.
here's the other thing too that you got to think about with that is the Green Party has their own primaries. And so whoever won the Green Party primary would have to be willing to step down and let him in there.
Yes. And if we're successful with our Dump the Corruption campaign, then there would be no reason for the Green Party candidate to step down because the expectation would be that the two major party candidates are going to lose anyway.
Yep.
Because of the
But
corruption.
another point I want to point out with this is look at the way they treated Stephen Donziger, and Stephen Donziger was an attorney, and look at how our system screwed him over.
I have been looking at that.
And that's my fear of them trying to challenge the DNC with the system that we currently have through the DNC. I just think it's useless to even try because I think everything's built up against it. So I think it's
so what we're
useless to work
basically
within the
saying,
party.
so what we're basically saying here
Mhm.
is that it's no use even thinking about supporting Marianne Williamson or RFK.
And it's only because of the party that he's running with. Her, I have other issues.
All right. So we have to then just go ahead with the Dump the Corruption campaign and let the third party candidates emerge on the strength
Exactly.
of the Dump the Corruption campaigns and then decide which one of them to support.
And here's another thought too, though, that I wanted to add in, because we know with the Electoral College that either a D or an R is going to win the president. So people who are in states like me, to where it's an open primary and the president doesn't matter as much as the Congress does, I'm actually considering voting for the least damageable president in the Republican primary. So far, DeSantis has not. put in yet, has not filed yet. So
Kim
we've
Scott,
got,
it was just announced today, and I was watching this evening on WTOC Channel 11, where my local news outlet, Republican U.S. Senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott, has launched an exploratory presidential deal.
okay, the Republican primary candidates that I know of that have filed for 2024
Nikki
is,
Haley, Trump,
and the one who was governor of my state before Sarah Sanders. Um, Actually, I think he would be the least damage out of the three of them because of how horrible we know Trump's foreign policy was. And his policy here, his policy with immigrants, his policy with Israel. We know how horrible how much of a war hawk Nikki Haley is.
We certainly do.
So
we need somebody like, and this is who I'm strongly lean toward.
and
Who
this
I
would
am
just be
really,
voting for him in the primary, not the general election.
this is who I'm waiting to announce for president on the Green Party. I am waiting for Ajamu Baraka. That's my man for 2024.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ajamu is really good. I agree. He'd be a very good candidate.
Because I
And he and
wouldn't
I are
vote.
friends on Facebook.
Okay. So it looks like there's 5 declared.
Well, before DeSantis declares, he's going to Israel. He's going to speak at the Celebrate the Faith of Israel event on April 27th.
Oh,
Of course.
My
We've also got Perry Johnson. And my idea is just, like I said, just voting in the primary, not in the general for these people. And that's just to try to make it because I've seen Democrats do this before in Arkansas, because Democrats know that they're not going to win the general. So they'll go vote in the Republican primary to vote for the least damage. And that's how they keep some certain ones from getting into office in our state. They just didn't have any decent primary people, but I know a lot of Democrats that voted in the Republican primary for governor.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't have anybody decent.
They did the same thing here in Georgia. They went and voted.
So they do it all the time. So if you don't
the
have
Democrats
a primary,
that I know of, they went and participated in the Republican primary and voted for Brian Kemp, who of course was going to win anyways, because Stacey Abrams really wasn't doing nothing in terms of campaigning. She was more focused on going on national television shows and making a state race into a national campaign.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she lost. And yeah, Kemp has done some good things here. I have to give him credit. He is a Republican, and I have to give him some credit where credit is due. Just like there was one thing that Trump did as president that I really had to credit
I think he froze up.
him on. And
You're freezing.
no.
But no.
One thing that he did not do that I would like to credit him for, he didn't get into a war with Ukraine.
No.
And Russia. He avoided that.
And, he did go around speaking to people, Kim Jong-un and just all different people. That's what basically they should be doing. People that are considered people that are different than you, or what they like to say were against you. But whatever, you speak with everybody. That's what you should be doing.
Yeah. If I can have if there's a third party primary in my state in my area that there's candidates on there that I'm interested in, I'll vote for them. But I'm very possibly considering just voting in the Republican primary just to try to get the least damage candidate that I can, because I know that the GNC is going to pick whoever they want.
Right.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is make the Dump the Corruption campaign successful.
Yeah,
So
we do. We
have to
really need
do-
it.
So we don't have to do these strange things.
I know. It's like
Exactly.
you're sitting here like you want to smack yourself, but you're like, maybe this is the smartest thing to do considering what we're stuck with. But at the same time, I'd have to bite my tongue
Yeah.
to stand in that line. And I'm just like, I don't want to do it. But I'm most wondering if out of the ones that I've looked at, Asa's the least damage. He's been governor of my state, and he was not nearly as bad as Clinton was.
Yeah, I
So,
remember Asa Hutchinson. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's things we had issues with him on, but he also, when they were trying to do the, when they passed the bill in the state against trans youth care, several trans people from the area, including our trans JP, went down and met with him with trans kids, and they explained to him how it works with trans youth care, and he vetoed it. But they had so much of a super majority that they were able to vote over his veto, and it went into law, and then the state Supreme Court took it out. But he actually vetoed it, and that surprised me.
Well, I guess he didn't really know, and that's it.
No,
It's great
and
when
that's
someone
the
doesn't
thing is a
know
lot of
something,
people
and
don't
then once
know.
they do know and learn,
He
that
sounds more like a,
actually,
I've heard about that, and he sounds more like the libertarian type, like Ron Paul type libertarian.
Yes.
He is a little bit more like that.
I'll admit, before I was a progressive, I used to be an avid Ron Paul libertarian type.
But then I'll
Yeah,
just vote
before I
for a
was
third party
a
in
leftist, that's
in
where
the
I
general.
was.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. I think it's about 10:14 or so.
Yeah. Sorry.
And that's all right. We still haven't finished with this topic. I don't think. Right.
No.
There's
I
a
don't
lot.
think we're. I think we are scraping the surface, and we're going to have to
Yeah.
really dig deep into what we're wanting to do and all that. And
Okay, so I think we should come back next Thursday and talk some more on this topic. Okay, I hope you'll all come,
Yeah, and hopefully Matt will be able to make it then too.
and
Yeah.
hopefully Madeline will be able to make it.
Yes.
Too. That would be excellent.
yeah, we're
yes.
going to have to get her times. We're going to have to remind her and all that because she's an hour behind us. She's in the same time bracket as Brandy.
Yes, yes, I'm aware. Anyway, thank you all for tonight. And thank you for coming back after I made that technical goof.
Oh,
And,
it's fine.
yeah,
At
well, of
least we
course,
still had a really good discussion, and that's all that matters.
we did
Yeah.
have a really good discussion, but for the aftermarket, we have to make this accessible to everybody, and that's a little
Yeah.
difficult now. Okay, so thanks a lot, everyone.
All
And
right.
okay, I'll see you tomorrow, I guess, right? Everybody
Yes,
on
you will.
programs
Yeah,
tomorrow.
depending on what I'm up to.
Okay, and I'll have my Dump the Corruption program tomorrow. It's going to be the last three of the regular Democrats that I'm going to cover. Okay. Okay, that's what the show is going to be about, and then also some general analysis of why Dump the Corruption is so important.
Yeah,
And
I think dump the corruption is very crucial if we're going to have actual democracy in this country.
I think so too. And
I
That
on the next Wednesday, I'll begin with the Republicans. I'm going to do 25 of the Republicans, okay, over a period of weeks to see if their fundraising pattern is pretty much the same as the Democrats.
And another thing too, Joe,
Probably will
that
be.
I want to suggest is once everybody has like signed up for the primaries and they turn in their first fundraising,
yeah.
we can go through those too
Oh, yeah, I love that.
for both sides.
Yeah, I love that idea too. Okay, for both sides.
For like the presidential, let's keep an eye on who's running in the primaries
yes,
and what money they're taking in. We may not be able to do all of Congress. I mean, that would be a lot to take in, a lot of research to do. So,
yeah, but maybe at that point, it could be that the first of our shows will get us some volunteers.
Yeah.
To do that, so that we
we'll have to definitely break this all up.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Hopefully.
And tomorrow, I was going to say tomorrow, join Brandy and Dee at 8:00. We're going to continue on with what we started tonight. Why the 1948 Palestinian expulsion and flight, the Nakba. So we have a lot more to discuss tomorrow.
Yeah, that article on Wikipedia, I thought was a pretty good article.
I agree with Andy down here, though. I do want to mention, she said only getting rid of the riffraff corrupt Congress will work. And I think that that's getting rid of them is the start of it.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, everybody, good night.
Have a good one.
Yeah, good night, everybody. Oh, yeah, and Joe's Coffee.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Please buy me coffee. Okay, good night, everybody.
They need to create one called Buy Me a Beer. That way y'all can buy me a beer.
Okay.
You know, I forgot to put my Buy Me a Coffee banner up there, so there it is, the Buy Me a Coffee banner.
And it should be in the description of the live stream as well, so go and check the description out. And don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn your notification bells on so you don't miss out on future updates from Joe Firestone, Empowering Democracy.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that.
Later, taters.
Since I'm so incompetent at all this stuff. Okay, bye.
Later, taters.
Later, taters.